Hello everyone.
Hi and welcome back to B-Sides Pro. We have for you today a new testing video on the Legere synthetic reed range. The full Legere.
The full range. Yeah, so we're going to do all of the reeds that they offer. So that's the Classic, the Studio Cut Classic, the Signature, and their new American cut reeds.
The new American.
That's it. So as you can see, we're both sitting in on this video. We've got Lottie over there and me over here. I'm going to be blowing the horns and blowing through the reeds, and the idea there is we're going to have one person blowing so we get a consistent kind of bass line so that we can kind of hear what the differences in sound are. But we thought it'd be really good if we had two ears or two sets of ears and two brains to kind of see how they respond. And because we're both quite different players, we thought it'd be good to get that kind of all-round viewpoint on how they sound basically.
Exciting.
And what they feel like. So should we get started?
Check them out.
So let's start with Legere's first reed that they released. So this is the Classic.
Nice.
I don't know whether Classic stands for their kind of like classic one that they produced, or whether it's supposed to be more kind of classical vibe to it. So let's give it a bit of a blow and see what it plays like. So there we go. As you can see, all of the Legere reeds come kind of packaged, all kind of nice and sealed, so you don't have to worry about someone else playing on it. If this tab at the back here is broken, guys, as you can see on this one, because I've already opened it, then I would suggest not buying it because someone else has probably played on it. So try and get ones that aren't opened, just for hygiene reasons more than anything, particularly at the minute. So I have followed Legere's sizing chart here, okay, to kind of the letter of the word. All right, so I've gone for a 3 Classic. Let's see how it blows. Nice thing about these is, as with all synthetic reeds, there is no warm-up period. So we're actually in quite a cold studio today.
Yeah, it's chilly.
And if I was on a cane reed, I would have to blow it for a good 5 to 10 minutes before it really warmed up. So let's just give this a blast straight away, and it should perform the way it's supposed to from the first breath. All right, so. Whoa!
It sounds a bit heavy.
Whoa! Okay, yeah, that is seriously heavy.
What size is that?
That's a 3. I play tenor, and normally I play tenor around about 4 hards on normal natural cane, or even 5s occasionally. So I think Legere might have got their sizing a little bit wrong on that one, if I'm honest with you, because if you go for the kind of size that they suggest for the Classics, you're going to give yourself a hernia.
What do they suggest? Is it the same as your standard?
It's almost exactly the same, and I find them way too heavy. So, and this is from a man who plays on really heavy reeds anyway, so I'm used to that resistance. So I'm going to pop down to a 2.5 here, and we're going to see if that makes a difference. Because, I mean, I could almost not blow that one.
That sounded tough.
That was really hard work, and as I say, I'm used to a pretty resistive setup, and this horn plays beautifully, as does the mouthpiece, so that shouldn't be a concern. Let's try again. Oh, okay, cool. So I kind of get where they're coming from now. I think, personally, Classic might stand for classical.
Okay.
I don't know whether that's true, but I can definitely feel a nice level of resistance there, which I kind of get if they're coming from the classical world. If I'm honest with you, it's still a bit hard work at 2.5. So for me to be comfortable, I'd have to go down to a 2 on this Classic. And the issue we're going to have there is if I go down to a 2, I think the sound is going to really thin out. Okay? But anyway, let's give this another little blow and we'll kind of get to grips with the sound on it. So it's got a nice kind of sound going on with it, and that's the resistance there. That's kind of pushing against that heavy reed. It's got a nice kind of warm middle sound to it. What I'm finding is it's maybe lacking a little bit in variance in colour.
Definitely.
And it's just way too hard. So if you are going to look at these Classics,
size down.
Size down. Like take it down, you know, a good whole number or maybe 1.5.
Yeah.
If you haven't been playing a long time, definitely think about taking down 1.5 to 1.25 strength.
Yeah.
Because these are much heavier than Legere suggest.
Yeah.
Still nice reeds, they still perform well, and I like the way that
the fact you didn't have to warm it up.
I didn't have to warm it up.
Like it did just work.
It worked the same at the end of that test as at the beginning.
Yeah.
I know I didn't play it for long, but even so if I was sat in, for example, a pit orchestra, if I was doing an outdoor gig,
somewhere really hot,
that's it. For example, if I was going back to Saudi Arabia and doing another tour, I might think about taking some of these because it's just really kind of consistent, which is nice. That's kind of the worry we have with cane reeds.
Yeah.
Okay, so that is the classic taken care of. Let's move on to their second cut. So this is also a classic, but it's a studio cut classic. I think the idea here, Legere was trying to cover the market kind of on the other side of the spectrum. So I think from everything that I've read about these, they should be brighter, they should have a kind of harder edge to them.
Focus?
Yeah, a little bit more focus to the sound. I think they're going for that kind of more poppy, studio, electronic music vibe with this one.
Get ya, Ibiza.
That's the one. Right, so here we go. I've got the studio cut on there now. Let's give this a little blast and see whether it's quite as heavy as the last one.
Okay.
Whoa, okay. So straight away, these are not. These are actually sized appropriately. So I've gone for a 3 here, and if I was on an alto, which I don't play too much, I'd probably be round about a 3.5, which corresponds to this 3.
Sure.
So it seems like Legere have got the size right with these studio. They're instantly loud and brighter.
Vibrant.
Yeah, they're definitely brighter. So let's give it a blast, like top to bottom. Give it a real play. Oh yeah, so straight away it's got a much harder edge to the sound for me.
Much more clean.
It's much cleaner. It's got that focus, kind of laser focus that you'd kind of want if you were doing certain pop sessions.
Definitely.
I think this is where the idea of the studio cut comes from. In my mind, it's going to work fantastically on kind of things like EDM. So.
Yeah, it has a real cleanness.
It really does.
For EDM, actually.
And this is a vintage soloist that I'm playing on.
Yeah.
And I could go and play an EDM gig.
No, that sounds really good.
Let's kind of put our fingers in our ears and try the altissimo. Okay, so I mean it's incredibly stable up the top end. I didn't really have to think at all about my tuning or even really my fingerings too much, and because I play tenor a lot, I often kind of fluff the altissimo fingerings on alto because they're ever so slightly different. Yeah, I mean I actually quite like this reed in its right context.
Yeah, definitely. And me too. This side of it sounds great in that kind of EDM pop setting where people really want you to have that crisp, clean shortness that you can't always produce in a cane reed.
It's a bit more tricky because the thing with cane reeds is that they give you so many different kind of harmonics and fundamentals just kind of vibrating out of them that it's actually tricky to blend when you're blending into kind of digital music and digital sounds. So this, which is much more focused. Yeah,
it reduces that breadth of sound.
Definitely. I mean, I would quite happily take this into a club gig that I have to go and do, problem, and some of my pop sessions as well. I think it works actually really quite well, and particularly I think on alto. Yeah, it's got that alto EDM sound.
It
really does. So yeah,
nice,
definite improvement from the
classic studio.
This is the classic studio cut,
and the weight was a much better weight.
It's much better. So it's actually. They've got their reed sizing correct with this one. So if you're going to
get one, maybe start with the classic studio.
Maybe have a look at the classic studio if you're looking for this kind of vibe. Let's go on to the next one. Right, so now we're on to the third reed that Legere has produced, and this one's been on the market a couple of years now.
Yeah.
I want to say 3, 4 maybe.
Yeah, probably.
Round about there. And this is a completely different material that makes this. That's it. So this is the Signature. The Signature was released kind of trying to capture the hearts and minds of soloists, essentially.
Okay.
People who want that individual voice but still a stability of a synthetic reed. I haven't really played on them much, but I have seen that some absolutely fantastic musicians, particularly classical actually, use them, and I think quite a lot in pit work. Again, these get used because you don't have to worry about your reed warping as you're sat. It's just sat there, you know, through an entire rehearsal, and then you've got to run a show or maybe 2 shows, and you've only played it for like 5 minutes in 10 hours.
Yeah.
It's going to get all wavy, and it's going to be
great.
You're going to be worrying that really good gig you've got yourself on is going to go out the window because you squeak because of your reed. So let's give this Signature a try. It's a thinner reed, and it's from a harder composite as far as I'm aware. And these actually, you can shave these ones down if you use certain ones of the Reed Geek product line. So if you do want to shape these, you can, but I believe you're going to need the Reed Geek Bullet. It's the only one hard enough to do it without kind of messing the reed up. Anyway, enough on that. Let's give it another little blow. So it's much more relaxed than the studio piece.
A lot more colourful as well.
It is, yeah. So it's not that kind of one laser focused sound. I feel like I can get more colours, as you say, out of this. I can go darker, I can go a bit brighter. It's certainly slightly more on the brighter side of the spectrum. But even so... Oh, they perform a little bit differently in the palm keys, as you can see there, but they're incredibly in tune. So those really E's, you know, and palm E is a kind of classically flat or sharp, depending on your horn fingering. So I'm really quite impressed with that tuning. Let's just give it another little play. So, not bad. I don't feel I quite have the freedom of expression that I would normally get on a cane reed when I'm improvising. But again, if I was doing classical work or pit work or literally a jazz session where I'm not actually improvising and all they want me to do, big band playing, this is going to be perfect for that because it's going to blend nicely because there's enough colour there. You're not going to stick out like a sore thumb, which is what will happen if you use the studios in that setting.
A little bit.
But they still kind of play really easily and they're comfortable.
Yeah, they sound comfortable.
They are comfortable. So, last little bit, which everyone wants to check out on these synthetic reeds, is the altissimo. So let's see what the altissimo is like on a Signature. Mm-hmm. So, fingers in your ears. Nice, okay, so again, I think it's really good in the altissimo. In fact, the only place I'm struggling a little bit is the palm keys, and that's because the air, I think, is running out a bit quicker than I'm used to. So I think with a bit of time, I get that under control, no problem. It's not about tuning, it's just about getting the reed to vibrate at the right consistency and the kind of right volume so that it speaks properly. But yeah, I mean, that altissimo was incredibly clean.
Yeah, it was really clean. And
not too punchy.
No.
Which is what I found
with the
studio.
All round, this reed feels a bit softer.
It does.
More sort of warmth to it. It's definitely more colourful.
It's a more all-rounder reed, this one. Absolutely.
Much more blendable.
This one. That's it. So, I mean, in terms of the Legere reeds, this definitely gets a thumbs up for me. It's a nice reed.
Me too.
Plays really comfortably, and all of those benefits you get from a synthetic reed, instant playability, good tuning, you know, consistency, all of those things you get out of this reed. So yeah, all round, big improvement on this one, Legere. Massive improvement. I'd definitely consider having these in my arsenal.
Amazing.
Right, so here we go. We're on to the final Legere reed.
Nice. What is this one?
This one is a new product that they've actually only had out probably, I want to say 8-9 months, maybe, roundabout. Came out February, March, maybe. Just as we were all about to head into this charming 2020. So, this is the Legere American Cut reed.
Nice.
I'm quite excited about this one.
Too.
Because I heard some guys playing on this when it first came out. There's some of the cats that I kind of look up to and follow. Really quite heavy jazz players, and they
really
sound. Yeah, they really did. They sounded great on it, and they were really happy with kind of the consistency. And again, taking out any of that kind of variation in reeds that you're going to naturally get with a cane reed.
Okay.
So this one comes.
Ooh, the fancy box.
Look at the fancy Legere box. So.
Old school.
Old school, new school. Okay, so they've definitely upped their packaging game. There's
great.
No question there. So the reed pops in just there, it's held nice and securely. Really good little case. I would quite like it if they had space for 2 in there, if I'm honest with you. Just as kind of a backup. If I had 4 or 5 of these in my case, I'd be running out of space.
Yeah, you would.
But yeah, great little box, that one.
Great.
Yeah. Really going to protect your reeds, but obviously you can just pop it into a normal reed case that you put your cane reeds in as well. Right, let's give this a blow and see how it reacts. Ooh, okay, so straight away that's got much more body to the sound. Like instantly I've got, oh yeah, there's a dig to that. Let's give it a proper blow. Straight away, that has the kind of body and the heart to the sound that I kind of look for. It's the reason I've played on cane reeds pretty much all my life, is because I've found most of these synthetic reeds lack that. They lack that substance at the kind of core of the sound that really allows you to push it around. It instantly makes me feel comfortable. Without that, I feel like I'm lacking something in my sound when I'm playing. And that's fine in certain scenarios, but when I'm playing the music that I love, I feel I'm missing something on most synthetic reeds. So this is a definite step up. There's absolutely no doubt there. Right, let's play it bottom to the top of the horn and then a bit of improvising. The reason I'm going to do some improvising on this one is obviously it's kind of looking at the jazz market. It's trying to capture the jazz market, this one, and the whole point with improvising is that we kind of want to forget what's going on up here and just allow your ideas to flow. So if this doesn't feel natural, instantly my improvising ideas will feel a little bit stilted. I'll start playing the same old thing, whereas if it's flowing naturally and freely for me, I can play my own ideas quite comfortably. So anyway, here we go. Oh yes, so really in tune, and that palmy popped out straight away. I didn't have to alter my embouchure or my airstream. So this is again the first synthetic reed I've played on, which plays similarly to a cane reed, top to the bottom of the horn. Right, anyway, here we go. Let's give a Cherokee another little blast. So straight away my ideas are flowing. There's no kind of barrier in the way almost. I'm not worrying about the reed, I'm not worrying about the horn, I'm just thinking about what I'm playing and kind of allowing the music to flow through me. And that is a real kind of game changer for me on synthetic reeds. I've never played a synthetic reed that allows me to improvise freely. Not properly. No. I've always felt that there's a little barrier there. I'm having to be, paying too much attention to my palm keys in an area, or the bottom end's not speaking properly, or it's lacking that central core sound I'm looking for. So I mean, this is, from what little I played on it, is a really, really top end synthetic reed. I can see why these guys like it. It's definitely on the brighter side of the spectrum for me. So if you're going for that kind of Stan Getz, Dexter Gordon, or maybe even Joe Lovano kind of vibe, then you'll probably find this isn't going to put you in that kind of right sonic area. No. But if you're going more kind of modern jazz players, so Chad Lefkowitz Brown, Alex Hahn, all those kind of guys who have a really centered, focused sound, is going to work beautifully there.
Yeah, and it's got a really nice amount of overtones in it, actually, which the rest didn't have.
That's it. So
from the listening point, they were all really clean. They were very focused. This actually has got variances within. It's got colours. Yeah. So you really feel it in your inner ear. It's like.
Yeah. So as kind of an audience member, as it were, in this scenario, you can hear those changes.
You hear the
colour.
Harmonics in the note. You hear more so than you have done with any other synthetic reed I've ever heard. Yeah. Cool. No, it's great. It sounds really good.
Nice. So last little bit that everyone wants to hear. Let's blast it into the Altissimo and see how it goes. So fingers in your ears. Apologies to the neighbours. Clean as can be, but still a nice amount of overtones there as well. And actually it growled really nicely. I can sometimes find that the synthetic reeds, because they're a bit heavier, they're so stiff in terms of the material they're made from, that they don't growl as easily, but this one growls absolutely perfectly. I have been a cane reed player all my life, but this
might convert you.
I don't know whether it's going to be completely converting me, because I play on the darker side of the spectrum.
I agree.
But I'm absolutely going to have these reeds in my arsenal, and this reed is not going back. It's staying here. Absolutely. I didn't say that. This is getting put in my back pocket when
we're going to get a phone call. They'll be like, what happened to that Legere?
What happened to that Legere? We're looking for it. No idea. Must have broken. They don't break, so that one won't work. I am, if not a convert, as close to a convert as you can be.
Wow. High praise.
Great reed.
That is high praise. Good job.
Right, so that was the Legere synthetic reed range.
Quite exciting. It
was interesting, yeah.
Yeah, from a listener's point of view, I think you can really hear there's a divide between these four reeds. So you've got the classic, the studio classic, and then you've got the signature and the American cut, and they kind of cut down the middle. From my point of view, the classic is just a no-go. I wouldn't go there. I wouldn't buy it. I wouldn't try it. The sizing was a big deal breaker for me. Like, you had your size, you couldn't play it at all. And what did you come down to in the end?
So I dropped down to a 2.5, and I normally play on kind of really heavy reeds. Yeah. I'm normally playing at like 3.5 or 4, depending on the reed brand. So to drop down to a 2.5 is quite a step for me.
And it still sounded hard.
It was still, realistically, I'd have to come down to a 2 to get that to work. And then what I'd be worried about is thinning that sound out.
Yeah.
The whole point of the classic reeds are that they give you that classic sound.
The resistance.
Yeah, the resistance. And I understand that from a classical perspective, but they really kind of overshot their mark on this one.
They did. It's really heavy.
It's a bit hard work. If that's all they were going to offer, then by all means, they'd be well worth checking out.
Yeah.
Because they were stable top to bottom.
Yeah.
But
I don't think so.
I was going to give myself a hernia blowing those for much longer. So for me,
discount.
Same from a player's perspective. I wouldn't go down that route personally.
No, especially not when you have the studio classic, which was so good. Compared to that,
they blew amazingly.
They had a great sound. They were stable. They're perfect for those kind of gigs where you need stability and you need responsiveness that is, always the same, consistent playing. So stuff like EDM gigs, club gigs, any of those kind of gigs where you have big breaks in or you're in hot climates or cold climates, anything that could really warp or affect your reed, this should sort out.
That's it. They gave you a really nice kind of punch, a nice edge. They were rather bright.
They were.
So for like some musics, they're not going to work as well. I would avoid them if you're playing predominantly jazz or if you're playing classical, just don't go near them. But if you're playing, as you say, EDM gigs, then pop gigs, they're going to work beautifully. Like the worry is on an EDM gig, I normally have like four reeds on me. That's it. And you just have to keep switching them up. And particularly when the clients are looking at you playing and you're having to continually change reeds, it's not what they're looking for. No. And it's not what you want to be bothering us when you're on a gig like that.
You don't want to think about it.
No.
So they'd be really good for like intermediate pro players, semi-pro players, anyone that's looking for A, that sound, or B, to have a really stable backup reed. If you're a pro player doing that kind of gig, get one of those and put it in your case. It's
definitely.
Really handy.
I mean, I'm absolutely adding one of those into my arsenal.
Most definitely.
No question. Yeah. Okay, so that was the classic camp.
Let's
look at the more modern camp. Yeah. So, the signatures,
what did you think? For you?
I liked the signatures. They played very stably. They had more colour than the classics. They didn't have quite as hard an edge. It was more rounded. But I felt very classical.
Yeah, you sounded really classical. It almost brought you into this clarinetist, professional orchestral sound. It was very staid, if that's the right word. It was the sound was very core. You lost all of that nice warm fuzziness, and it was very straight. I think even as a classical player, you would struggle with colour on those a little bit.
I would agree. I mean,
as a saxophonist,
I played a lot of classical clarinet when I was younger, and I haven't played any in years, so I'm really familiar with that sound. But I've never played classical saxophone.
Yeah.
And this instantly put me back into kind of a classical realm, which I should never be in.
No.
And the saxophone we were playing on, it's a TJ SR, red brass, by the way, has a really nice big sound to it. It's really colourful. It's got a lot of bottom end. And it kind of washed that colour out.
It did a little bit.
It was very, as you say, it was kind of a small sound.
It was really it'd be great, I think, for clarinetists. If you're a doubler, but you're predominantly a clarinetist and you play a bit of saxophone, that will give you that comfortability. You can swap between the two quite easily because it will feel like a clarinet. It
felt like I was playing on a clarinet, despite the fact that I'm on a conical bore instrument and a much bigger mouthpiece. I did feel like I was on my buffet with a B45. Yeah. It was weird. I didn't dislike them, and I think for the certain players, they're going to work really well. If you're a sax player predominantly and you're looking for a synthetic reed,
you might not enjoy it as much.
I think you'll find that you're going to lose a bit of that kind of bottom, that lower harmonic, which gives you that kind of fatness to your sound. So, I mean, good reeds, very stable. I particularly liked, of all the ranges, I liked the Altissimo in the signature. It was nice. Really clean. Good reeds, but I think there was a standout in the modern camp.
The American cut is phenomenal.
I mean,
it sounded great. It sounded almost like your normal reeds. Almost.
Yeah.
If you didn't know how you played, and I hadn't heard you play so much, I wouldn't realise that you were playing something different.
Yeah. I mean, from a player's point of view, they responded well. I could run my lines without being like, oh, I'm playing on something different.
That's good.
So I could think about the music, which is obviously like the end goal.
Yeah.
There was a nice kind of mid-range and lower and upper harmonic to it. Great central core. For me, it definitely gave me a more kind of modern sound.
Yeah, I think so.
I play on heavier reeds and have a slightly darker sound than quite a lot of the modern guys. But if you're looking for that kind of Brecker sound, 100%. That Chad Lefkowitz Brown or Alex Hahn,
they'll really give it to you.
This reed is going to work beautifully for you. And interestingly, it was the only reed where I could do that kind of ghost tonguing to the full range I normally could on a cane reed. I found the signatures, I could ghost tongue on them, but it was lacking a little bit, so I think I'm not a convert yet.
Yeah.
If anyone knows me,
not as a purist.
I'm an absolute purist. I mean, I'll play on cane reeds until I die, probably. But this has made me really reconsider. I'm going to have some of these American cuts in my case. Absolutely. Will they be my everyday read? No. But they will definitely be there as a backup read. And should I be going into environments where, for example, certain sessions. If someone called me in and they were like, oh, we really need you to do that kind of Brecker sound.
Yeah, perfect.
I mean, boom, There you go.
Easy. Don't worry about
American cut. I don't have to find the right reed that's the right brightness, but with body, don't have to do any of that. If I'm going on tour and I'm not playing, you know, entirely kind of like small band jazz, American cut all the way. I did a tour last summer. I was somewhere pretty hot, and I ran through like 3.5 boxes of reeds in a couple of weeks. It wasn't cheap. Whereas if I'd had the American cut, I would have taken one main one and then one back up, and they still would have been blowing exactly the same at the end of the tour as at the beginning of the tour. So yeah, I mean, I've got to say, I'm really impressed.
Yeah, me too. If this is like the standard of current synthetic reeds, it's really exciting. When you go from like the original, the classic, all the way through,
you can really see the progression.
It's like
it's really ramping up. It's like the classic is not bad at all.
It's all right.
Studio classic is a real step up, particularly if you're in the EDM world.
Yeah.
The signature is a more colourful and slightly less bright version of that studio classic. Yeah. And then now we've got
completely scooped up again.
Yeah, this American cut,
which is the closest thing to a cane reed I think that you could get.
It's got body, it's got harmonics, it's got nice articulation on it. Slightly brighter than some of the darker reeds out there, but not massively so. You know,
blendable.
I
think it's good. I really like it.
I mean, I'm getting one. I'm a big fan, and I'm definitely going to be holding on to a couple of these testers we've been handed over.
Definitely.
They won't be getting sent back. So
nope. Sorry. Thanks. Thanks, Legere.
Yeah.
Thanks, Barnes Mullins. But yeah, I think So just to summarise, those two are probably the best. The studio classic, and the American cut. And for me, it's also the sizing. Both of those size exactly.
They were spot on. I didn't have to change my reed strength. You know, I went for a 3.5 on both, and they both just blew.
So if you're looking for a reed that does all those things, that is similar to what you already have, they're definitely worth checking out.
I mean, hopefully that was helpful for you. I would definitely recommend looking at those Legere reeds.
Yeah, me too.
And that's from a purist.
There ain't no love in the heart of the city.